Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Azam Khan. Here's a look at tonight's top stories. Employees could receive rest under a heat stroke warning system, which begins next week. 8 Venezuelan migrants were killed after being run over by an SUV in Texas. And Hong Kong's exchange fund nets a return of nearly $98 billion in the first quarter. The Labor Department will launch a 3-tier warning system next week in a bid to spare workers from the punishing summer heat. Depending on the temperature, workers will be given rest times and even stoppages, although the guidelines have no legal status. Macy Mock reports.
After refusing to declare heat stroke as an occupational disease, the Labor Department is introducing a warning system aimed at protecting workers in summer. From next Monday, it will issue color-coded heat stress at work warnings based on the observatory's heat index, which gauges factors such as temperature, humidity, and wind speed. An amber warning will be issued whenever the heat index reaches 30. Employees who work outdoors or inside stuffy environments are advised to take regular breaks, the length of which is based on their physical workload. Jobs deemed to require moderate workload, such as cleaners and delivery workers, should rest for 15 minutes every hour. Meanwhile, scaffolders and bar benders under very heavy workload are recommended to rest for 45 minutes per hour.
Based on the scientific studies, we try to control the employees' core temperature under 38 degrees Celsius.
When the heat index reaches 32 and 34, the red and black warnings will be issued respectively. Security guards, traffic wardens, and other workers under light workload should rest for 15 to 30 minutes per hour. Workers with heavy or very heavy workload are advised to down tools altogether. Officials do not expect these 2 warnings to be issued frequently, judging from past data of the heat index. Employers can refer to the government's guidance notes to determine how much rest they should provide to the workers. But employers are not required by law to stick to the rules. The Labor Department called on both sides to come to a mutual agreement, while inspectors will patrol work sites regularly to conduct occupational safety checks. Maisie Mock, HKIBC.
The Association for the Rights of Industrial Accident Victims welcomed the guidelines, but feared they could be hard to implement.
For example, indoor and outdoor workers are relied on the same heat index. However, the actual working environment is different, and it is difficult to monitor. I urge the Labor Department must review the situation in a timely manner. If the measures are ineffective, ultimately legislation may be necessary.
Deputy Commissioner for Labor Vincent Fung said a review will be conducted 2 years later. Others also expressed concern if employers can really make arrangements within 1 hour of the warning being issued. Lawmaker Frankie Ngan called on authorities to issue the warnings ahead of time. All suspects related to the grisly murder of socialite Abby Choi have been apprehended, according to the prosecution. The confirmation came as Choi's former husband, Alex Kwong, as well as his brother and father, appeared in Kowloon City Magistracy today. They are all charged with murder, while Choi's ex-mother-in-law is accused of perverting the course of justice. Police confirmed that the family of 4, plus 2 others who aided the escape of Alex Kwong, were the only suspects. The case has been adjourned until July 31st, as forensic exams are still underway for around 30 pieces of evidence. At least 13 people were injured after a minibus they were traveling in collided with a double-decker in Kwai Chung. The injured passengers were all conscious and were treated at the scene. KMB said the double-decker was not carrying any passengers at the time. It is believed the double-decker was switching lanes when it hit the minibus, causing the accident. Foreign Minister Qin Gang has stressed the importance of stable Sino-US ties in a meeting with Washington's top envoy in China. During their meeting in Beijing this morning, Qin also told U.S. Ambassador Nicholas Burns that the United States must correct its course of action on Taiwan. Burns revealed on Twitter that both sides also discussed expanding high-level communication. Relations between the two superpowers once eased when President Xi Jinping met his U.S. counterpart Joe Biden in Indonesia in November, but tensions flared up again after a high-altitude Chinese balloon traversed American airspace, prompting U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken to cancel his Beijing visit. Overseas, at least 8 people were killed in the U.S. state of Texas after a driver plowed into a crowd of Venezuelan migrants near the border with Mexico. It is not known if the tragedy was purely an accident or intentional. Sachin Khatvi reports.
The tragedy occurred at this bus stop at the border town of Brownsville, a landing hotspot for migrants from Central and South America. Eyewitnesses saw the driver of a Range Rover jump a red light before approaching the bus stop at high speed and mowing down people. It only came to a halt after the SUV rolled over. Most of the 8 victims were Venezuelan men staying in a migrant shelter across the road. They were waiting for a bus to go downtown. There were no passengers in the car, and the injured driver was taken to hospital. He was not identified and was believed to be in his 30s or 40s.
As far as witnesses know, they're saying that the car lost control. Now, whether we know whether it was an accident or intentional, that is still under investigation. The driver was detained by officers, and he's getting medical care right now as we speak. And right now he's facing at least a charge of reckless driving, but more than likely there's going to be other charges coming on later on in the day.
The easing of pandemic measures in recent months has led to an influx of illegal immigrants, but things are set to get a lot worse. A law enacted in early 2020 to expel migrants on COVID grounds is set to end this Thursday, when the pandemic is no longer considered a public health emergency. Tens of thousands of migrants are expected to enter the country in the coming days, prompting the Biden administration to send 1,500 troops to the border to maintain peace and order. Sachin Khatvi, HKIBC.
The Arab League has voted to reinstate Syria into the influential regional bloc after years of isolation. The vote in the Egyptian capital Cairo came days after the diplomats met in Jordan to discuss a roadmap to return Syria to the Arab fold. The League's Secretary General said Syrian President Bashar al-Assad can attend the summit as early as next month if he wishes to. The move is the latest in a flurry of regional normalization in recent weeks, including formal ties re-established between Riyadh and Damascus. Syria's membership in the Arab League was suspended 12 years ago, early into the country's civil war, fueled by US-backed rebels against Assad. The decade-long conflict has killed nearly 500,000 people and displaced half the population. Russia claims it has captured 2 more districts in the eastern Ukrainian city of Bakhmut. The ruined city has witnessed the war's longest and bloodiest battle. Ukraine confirmed that Moscow has launched a new wave of airstrikes across cities, including the capital, Kyiv. Several injuries have been reported so far. Meanwhile, Russia has begun the evacuation of its officials and civilians from the occupied region of Zaporizhia, following increased shelling from Ukrainian forces. Hong Kong's exchange fund has posted a return of nearly $98 billion in the first quarter of this year, offsetting nearly half of the record amount lost last year. But the Monetary Authority remained cautious over the fund's outlook, citing uncertainties in the global economy. Chloe Feng reports.
Hong Kong's exchange fund is showing strong signs of a recovery after a record year which saw $205 billion evaporate from the city's war chest to defend the local currency. It posted a return of $97.9 billion between January and March, the best quarterly result since the end of 2020. It was also a 33% improvement from the previous quarter, when the fund posted $73 billion of return.
The gains are across the board because the U.S. 10-year Treasury yield, for example, has come down quite a bit, and that contributes to the rise in the bond prices. And we've got quite a decent gain from that. And the global stock market have also rebounded after the very sharp decline almost for the whole of last year.
Briefing lawmakers at a Legislative Council panel, Monetary Authority Chief Executive Eddie Yue said bond investments were the biggest contributors to the rally, returning $43.9 billion in the first quarter. That was a 72% jump compared to the previous quarter. There was also a six-fold quarterly jump in foreign exchange appreciation on the fund's non-US dollar assets, raking in $25.2 billion. Local and overseas stock investments also brought in nearly $29 billion combined. However, Yue remained cautious over the fund's outlook in the coming months.
Will there be a need for the Fed to keep the U.S. rates at the current rate for a longer time instead of really reducing it as the market has hoped or has expected? And whether this disconnect between the Fed projections and the market expectation will lead to further volatility in the financial markets is something that we need to watch.
He added the ongoing banking turmoil in the United States, as well as recession fears in the global economy, could also weigh on the fund's performance. Chloe Feng, HKIBC.
The Hong Kong market kicked off the week with big gains as banks and oil futures led the rally. Bank shares surged after mainland lenders cut deposit rates by providing cheap loans to small businesses and property buyers. Bank of China was up 4.6%, while institutional lender ICBC gained 4.5%. A rebound in crude prices after a 3-week slump propped up oil-related stocks. Sinopec went up 5.9%, followed closely by China National Offshore Oil Corporation, or CNOOC, which finished 5.8% higher. The Hang Seng Index edged up 1.2%. Now let's take a look at the markets. The Hang Seng Index closed up 247 points. Top 10 active stocks, Tencent was down $2. Bank of China was up 15 cents. Ping An was up $1.10. Tracker Fund up 24 cents. Forex trading against the Hong Kong dollar, the euro is at 8.67, the Canadian dollar at 5.88. And over in UK, London FTSE is currently closed. Onto the weather now. It'll be cloudy tomorrow with occasional showers. Temperatures will range between 22 and 25 degrees. Mostly overcast for the rest of the week. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our main news from Monday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Azam Khan. Thanks for watching. Good night.